Continuing the journey, we enter a deeply emotional story about prejudice, resilience, and the power of transformation. The story begins with Camille and her young daughter, Lena, an African-American duo eager to embark on a dream beach vacation. The excitement of rewarding Lena's academic success turns their anticipation of a smooth flight into a heart-wrenching trial when they face discrimination from a flight attendant. Tensions peak as Camille chooses to stand against the injustice, triggering events that not only reshape their lives but ripple through the aviation industry itself. What unfolded during that fateful flight? How did Camille's courage become a lesson for an entire service sector? Stay tuned to uncover this profound and surprising tale. If stories about fairness, bravery, and positive change resonate with you, hit subscribe to ensure you don't miss a moment. Imagine yourself in Camille's shoes. What would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments. The sunlight embraced Lena's Best Student Award certificate, her small hands lovingly running over its bold print. For the first time, pride welled up in the young girl, her wide eyes reflecting the significance of her achievement. Camille, Lena's mother, entered with a gentle smile and a compact suitcase in tow. Puzzled, Lena asked, "Mom, why the suitcase? We're not going anywhere today." Camille's knowing smile deepened. "Didn't I tell you yesterday? It's your reward." Lena sprang up with glee, her curiosity brimming. "A reward? What is it? Are we going somewhere?" Camille nodded, pulling her daughter close. "We're flying to the beach. A full week, just you and me." "Really, Mom?" "Sandcastles, swimming, shrimp, and crab," Lena shouted, her joy lifting her tiny feet off the ground as she jumped like a little bird. "Would you like me to expand or add any further details to this narrative?" Camille smiled, gently stroking her daughter's curly hair. Her heart swelled with warmth. Lena had worked so hard to achieve this milestone, especially as the only black girl in her class. The judgmental stares and whispered remarks had once made Lena feel isolated, but today, none of that mattered anymore. Her daughter's happiness was the only thing Camille wanted to protect. The steady hum of the taxi engine accompanied them on the road to the airport. Lena pressed her face against the window, her wide eyes taking in the passing buildings. The world outside was a flurry of new sights that made her ask questions nonstop. "Mom, is our hotel near the beach big? Does it have a pool? Is the food good?" "Our hotel is a beautiful resort with a big pool and a seafood restaurant. You'll love it." "Mom, I want to eat crab. And shrimp too. Oh, don't forget to bring my flowy dress. I want to take pretty pictures by the sea." Camille burst out laughing, looking at Lena with affection. "All right, sweetheart. But there's one important thing I want you to remember." "What's the most important thing, Mom?" "You must always be proud of who you are. Don't let anyone make you feel small, okay?" Lena sat still, her eyes locked on her mother. "Okay, Mom. I'll always be proud." The airport came into view, vast and bustling. Lena was awestruck by the lively crowds pulling suitcases hurriedly across the space. Her eyes sparkled as her feet hurried to keep up with her mother through the revolving doors. "Mom, is everyone here going to the beach like us?" "Maybe, but everyone has their own destination. Like their own unique path," Camille replied with a smile, guiding Lena to the check-in counter. Though the air buzzed with laughter and chatter, Camille couldn't help but notice the subtle glances directed at them. A couple standing in front of them turned around, their eyes scrutinizing. The man subtly pulled his suitcase closer as if the mere presence of Camille and Lena was an unwelcome intrusion. Camille tightened her grip on Lena's hand. "Keep looking forward, my love," she said softly. When it was their turn, the check-in agent glanced at their tickets before looking at the mother and daughter, their expression briefly cold. "Please hold on for a moment. I need to verify the ticket details." Camille remained calm. "Is there an issue with our tickets?" "No, just need to confirm something." "Are you two traveling alone?" The agent's tone carried a hint of doubt. "Yes, it's just the two of us." "Is there a problem?" The agent didn't answer, instead turning to whisper with a colleague. Lena tugged at her mother's hand and whispered, "Mom, what are they saying? Why are they looking at us like that?" Camille knelt down, gently rubbing her daughter's hand. "It's all right, sweetheart. We haven't done anything wrong." A moment later, the agent handed the tickets back with a forced smile. "Sorry for the delay. Have a pleasant flight." Camille responded with a faint smile and led Lena away. A pang of unease flickered in her heart. She didn't want to dampen Lena's excitement, but the attitudes of those around them had already begun to chip away at the initial joy. "Well, are you ready to fly?" Camille asked with an encouraging tone. "Ready, Mom. Let's go quickly. I want to see the plane." Hand in hand, they made their way toward the security check area, leaving behind the prejudiced stares. Camille and Lena's journey began with eager anticipation on the way to the airport, but the judgmental glances and unfair treatment at the check-in counter quickly dimmed their excitement. This was only the beginning of a trip that would defy their expectations, as prejudice seeped into each moment. Can Camille safeguard her daughter's joy and confidence amidst the challenges ahead? Stay tuned for the next developments in this journey, where Camille's resilience will be put to the test and crucial lessons will emerge. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't miss the continuation of this compelling story. The security checkpoint buzzed with noise announcements blaring over loudspeakers, the hum of suitcase wheels on the floor, and the murmur of conversations filling the air. Lena walked closely beside her mother, her wide eyes darting around, curious about everything. It was her first time in such a large airport. Yet, Camille couldn't shake the weight of the stares around them, strangers' glances that felt like examinations, judgments, as if mother and daughter didn't belong in this space. When their turn came, Camille guided Lena through the baggage check. A middle-aged security officer glanced at them, his expression briefly betraying irritation. He gestured for them to stop and signaled a more thorough inspection of their bags than usual. Camille remained composed, but Lena couldn't help noticing the difference in how they were treated compared to other passengers. Behind them, whispers began to filter through the air, faint but clear enough for Camille to catch. "They don't look like they belong in coach. Look at their bags, they must be cheap knockoffs." Lena lowered her head, clutching at the hem of her mother's shirt. Camille bent down, whispering softly in her daughter's ear. "Keep your head up, Lena. Don't let them take away your confidence." But the situation didn't stop there. After checking their bags, the officer waved Camille through the scanner. When nothing unusual appeared, he pointed to Lena. "The girl, send her through again." Camille frowned, her tone losing its earlier calm. "She already went through. What's the issue?" "It's just a random check," the officer replied, his voice flat. "Please cooperate." "Random check," Camille repeated, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Then why are only the two of us being checked so thoroughly? Those passengers over there," she pointed at a group that had just passed, "weren't treated like this." The officer smirked but offered no answer. Instead, he waved over a female security agent to inspect Lena again. Lena stood trembling, her eyes filling with tears as the agent used a scanner, slowly and deliberately passing it over her, as if to prolong the moment. "Mom," Lena whispered weakly, her voice trembling. Camille stepped forward immediately, placing herself between Lena and the officer. "That's enough. You have no valid reason to treat my daughter this way." The female officer hesitated, glancing toward the middle-aged man. He shrugged and waved dismissively. "Fine, you can go." Camille grabbed Lena's hand and walked briskly away, her grip firm but protective. Lena remained silent as they made their way to the boarding gate, her eyes red and glistening with unshed tears. All her initial excitement had been replaced with quiet sadness, as if the joy of their adventure had been stolen. The mother and daughter found seats near a large window overlooking the runway. Camille placed a comforting hand on Lena's shoulder and gently asked, "Are you okay, Lena?" "I don't understand," Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Why did they treat us like that? Did I do something wrong, Mom?" "You didn't do anything wrong," Camille replied, her voice warm yet firm. "Sometimes people look at us and think that just because we're different, we don't deserve to be treated fairly. But remember this, Lena, you must never let them make you feel less than. You have the right to stand up for yourself." Lena nodded, though her eyes still held a glimmer of hurt. Camille sighed inwardly, knowing this wouldn't be the last time her daughter would face such moments, but she was determined to teach Lena how to face them with strength. The announcement blared over the speakers, signaling passengers to prepare for boarding. Camille and Lena stood and made their way to the gate. When handing over their tickets, the gate agent glanced at them with a subtle but unmistakable air of scrutiny before offering a forced smile. "Have a good flight," they said. But their tone felt more perfunctory than genuine. Lena hesitated and softly asked, "Mom, should I say thank you?" Camille smiled. "You should. Not for them, but because you are polite." Lena looked at her mother, then turned and offered a quiet thank you. Camille smiled at her daughter, squeezing her hand tightly as they walked through the boarding gate. As Lena settled into her seat by the airplane window, she gazed outside, trying to push away the memory of the stares and whispers that had surrounded them all morning. Camille, however, felt an unrelenting flame ignite within her. She knew this was just the beginning. This flight, meant to be a reward, had become a lesson, a reminder that life isn't always fair, and sometimes respect must be reclaimed by standing up for what's right. The barriers they faced didn't stop at judgmental glances but extended into overt actions at the security checkpoint. For the first time, Lena fully grasped what unfairness felt like, confronted with fear and hurt. Yet Camille remained steadfast, protecting her daughter with unwavering resolve. Would Camille's resilience be strong enough to carry them through? And what challenges awaited them as they entered the airplane cabin? Stay tuned to follow the next chapter of this journey, where the trials will grow tougher but also bring deeply emotional moments. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to keep watching to see what happens next. The atmosphere on the plane brought back a bit of Lena's excitement. She pressed her face against the window, staring intently at the planes parked along the runway. The weariness from the airport seemed to fade as the plane began to taxi, preparing for takeoff. Camille held her daughter's hand, squeezing it lightly, a silent reassurance that everything would be all right. The plane slowly lifted off the ground, giving Lena a strange but thrilling sensation. She gasped softly, "Mom, we're really flying." Camille smiled, gently brushing her daughter's hair. "That's right, my love. This is a moment to remember, isn't it?" But the joy didn't last long. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, Camille called for a flight attendant to request an extra blanket for Lena, who was starting to feel cold. A male flight attendant approached. He was tall, his face sharp and his expression unfriendly. "What do you need?" he asked curtly, his tone audible but devoid of warmth. Camille maintained her composure. "My daughter is feeling a bit cold. Could you please bring us a blanket?" The attendant glanced at Lena before turning back to Camille, his lips curling into a faint, dismissive smile. "I'm sorry, but the blankets on this flight are limited. They're reserved for passengers in first class." Camille frowned slightly. She glanced around and noticed another passenger in the same cabin had just been given a blanket by a different attendant. "I just saw a passenger here receive a blanket. Why can't my daughter have one?" The flight attendant shrugged, his voice tinged with disdain. "That's our decision. We ask for your understanding." Lena looked up at her mother, her eyes confused. "It's okay, Mom. I don't need a blanket anymore." But Camille wasn't willing to let it go. "Every passenger is entitled to this service. I am asking you to bring my daughter a blanket." The flight attendant leaned slightly forward, his gaze challenging. "If you're not satisfied, you can file a complaint after the flight. For now, I have other passengers to attend to." Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away, leaving Camille and Lena stunned. Passengers nearby began murmuring. A middle-aged woman seated nearby spoke up. "She only asked for a blanket. It's not a big deal. Why does he have to be so difficult?" Another man chimed in. "I've flown on this airline before. That guy isn't just rude, he's discriminatory. Last time I saw him treat an Asian couple the same way." Camille noticed the sympathetic glances from a few passengers, but they did little to soothe the anger bubbling inside her. Lena sat quietly, hugging herself tightly. "Mom, I'm fine. Let's just forget about it." Camille looked at her daughter, her heart heavy with a mix of frustration and determination. She knew this moment wasn't just about the blanket, it was about standing up for their dignity. But for now, she took a deep breath and decided to focus on comforting Lena, knowing that the fight for respect wasn't over yet. Camille gently placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "No, Lena. We don't let anyone treat us like this. You deserve the same respect as everyone else." When the male flight attendant passed by again, Camille called out to him, her voice clear and resolute this time. "I want to speak to the lead attendant. Right now." The flight attendant stopped, his eyes flashing with defiance. "Ma'am, you're disturbing other passengers. I suggest you sit down and remain quiet." Camille stood up, meeting his gaze head-on. "You're the one causing a disturbance. You refuse to serve my daughter without a valid reason. I demand to see the lead attendant immediately." Her strong words caught the attention of nearby passengers. A few nodded in quiet support. Under increasing pressure, the flight attendant reluctantly walked away to summon the lead attendant. A middle-aged woman in a lead attendant's uniform approached, her professional demeanor thinly veiling a hint of irritation. "Ma'am, I'm the lead flight attendant. How can I assist you? Camille recounted the entire incident. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable. My daughter is cold, and I simply requested a blanket. Yet, your crew member refused, and his actions were blatantly discriminatory. The lead attendant frowned slightly, casting a quick glance at the male attendant before turning back to Camille. On behalf of the airline, I apologize for this inconvenience. We will address this immediately. She turned to the male attendant, her voice low but firm. Bring the passenger a blanket, now. The male attendant reluctantly nodded, muttering under his breath as he walked away. But Camille wasn't done. This isn't just about a blanket. I want assurance that no other passenger will experience such discrimination. He needs to be held accountable. The tension eased temporarily as a blanket was finally brought to Lena. Yet the atmosphere in the cabin remained heavy. Camille could feel the weight of unresolved injustice, and she knew she had to take further action. Sitting beside her mother, Lena whispered, "Mom, I think you're really brave. I'll remember this lesson." Camille smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "And you'll learn to stand up for yourself too, Lena." This is just the beginning. High above the clouds, Camille and Lena's journey was once again tested by unfair treatment from those tasked with serving them. The tension escalated as Camille refused to stay silent in the face of discrimination. But this was only the start of a series of unexpected events. Will Camille succeed in holding those responsible accountable, or will she face further obstacles? Stay tuned as the drama intensifies and the true values of courage and justice are put to the test. Share your thoughts in the comments and continue following this story for what happens next. The atmosphere in the cabin grew increasingly tense. Camille felt the weight of numerous eyes on her and Lena, some curious, others sympathetic. Lena sat close to her mother, clutching the blanket they had finally received, but the chill in her heart lingered, refusing to dissipate. The male flight attendant passed by again, clearly avoiding eye contact with Camille. Each time he walked past, Lena lowered her head, as if hoping to disappear from view. Camille leaned over, gently rubbing her daughter's back. Her voice was low but firm. "You don't need to lower your head. You've done nothing wrong." A voice from a few rows back broke through the heavy silence. "You did the right thing, Ma. I am. People need to speak up against behavior like this." It was a middle-aged man with a stern face. He nodded, his expression encouraging. The flight attendant, standing nearby, turned sharply at the comment. "Sir, please remain quiet and avoid disturbing other passengers," he said coldly, though his words were clearly directed at the man. The man gave a wry smile, crossing his arms. "Disturbing? The real disturbance is your behavior. The way you treated this mother and her daughter has made all of us uncomfortable." The flight attendant's face flushed red as he moved closer to the man. "Sir, I'm asking you to stop these remarks, or I will be forced to report this incident." Camille could no longer stay silent. She stood up, her voice carrying across the cabin. "Report it? Do you think your discriminatory behavior will be overlooked? If necessary, I will personally request to speak with the captain to address this issue." The cabin erupted into murmurs. Passengers began whispering to one another, some nodding in agreement, others remaining silent but watching intently with concerned eyes. The flight attendant turned to Camille, his eyes blazing. "Mom, I strongly suggest you sit down and keep quiet. This is your final warning." Camille didn't flinch. "I want to speak with the captain. And if you refuse, I'll escalate this issue when we land. Let me assure you, I am not afraid to expose what has happened here." A young woman seated in front of Camille turned around, her eyes blazing with anger as she glared at the flight attendant. "He needs to be held accountable. Behavior like this is absolutely unacceptable." The tension in the cabin was palpable, the murmurs growing louder. Camille stood her ground, knowing that this wasn't just about her and Lena, it was about ensuring no one else would have to endure such treatment. The murmurs of agreement grew louder throughout the cabin. Some passengers began raising their phones, clearly recording the unfolding scene. The male flight attendant, now backed into a corner, glared at Camille but, under the mounting pressure from passengers, reluctantly pulled out his radio and quietly contacted the lead attendant. Moments later, the lead flight attendant returned, her face tight with tension. She bowed slightly toward Camille. "Ma'am, I apologize for the inconvenience. I will address this matter with my staff after the flight." Camille's gaze remained cold and steady. "An apology? Do you think a hollow apology will fix this?" "I asked to speak with the captain." Ma Am, the lead attendant, began cautiously. The captain is currently overseeing the flight. It might be very difficult to arrange a direct meeting with him. A voice cut through the cabin from the rear, commanding immediate attention. No need to worry. I'll handle this personally. All eyes turned toward the source of the voice. The captain, dressed impeccably in his uniform, approached with a calm but authoritative demeanor. He walked slowly to where Camille stood, his gaze scanning the situation before nodding politely. I'm the captain of this flight. I've been informed there's an issue involving a passenger and our staff. I'd like to hear the details. Camille straightened her back, her voice firm but courteous. Captain, all I ask for is respect for myself and my daughter. Since we boarded this flight, your crew member has shown clear signs of discriminatory behavior and has unjustly refused to serve my daughter. I demand an explanation and immediate resolution. The captain turned to the lead attendant and the male flight attendant, his voice low but laden with authority. Both of you provide me with a full report. Now. The male flight attendant kept his head lowered, clearly avoiding eye contact. The lead attendant stammered, Captain, I believe this might be a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, the captain interrupted, his tone icy. I do not tolerate any behavior that disrespects or harms passengers, especially conduct that indicates discrimination. I want an explanation immediately. Camille felt Lena squeeze her hand tightly. The little girl glanced up, and for the first time during the flight, her eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope. The cabin fell into a tense silence. The captain fixed his piercing gaze on the male flight attendant, as though looking straight through him. I will personally ensure this matter is addressed, and I guarantee the passengers will receive a proper apology. The weight of the captain's words hung heavy in the air. Camille held Lena close, her determination unwavering, as she sensed a shift, a moment where justice began to take form. Camille looked at the captain, a wave of relief washing over her. But she knew this was only the first step in seeking justice. The cabin held its collective breath, waiting for what would happen next. Beside her, Lena squeezed her mother's hand tighter and whispered, Mom, I think this time we're going to win. Camille smiled, her resolve shining through. That's right, sweetheart. And we're not stopping here. With the captain's arrival, every eye in the cabin was fixed on his actions. This was not just an opportunity for Camille and Lena to reclaim their dignity, but also a moment to confront the prejudice that had been so blatantly displayed. Would the captain's intervention lead to real justice, or would it end with a superficial apology? And what steps would Camille take to ensure her daughter would no longer have to endure such harm? Stay tuned as the story unfolds, where the truth comes to light and justice begins to take its rightful place. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't miss the next chapter in this compelling journey. The atmosphere in the cabin remained thick, like a storm brewing on the brink of eruption. After the captain demanded explanations from the male flight attendant and the lead attendant, every passenger watched intently. Camille stood tall, her sharp gaze unwavering as she held Lena's hand tightly, transferring confidence to her daughter. The captain approached Camille and gave a respectful nod. Ma Am, first, let me apologize for what you and your daughter have experienced on this flight. As the person responsible, I'd like to hear the full account from your perspective. Camille didn't let her emotions overpower her. Her voice was clear and deliberate, each word striking like a blade against the injustice they had faced. My daughter and I were treated disrespectfully. Your staff member didn't just deny us basic requests but exhibited blatant discriminatory behavior. This was no accident, it was a choice. Lena looked at her mother, her eyes brimming with admiration. The captain turned to the male flight attendant, his expression stern. Do you have anything to say for yourself? The flight attendant raised his head but avoided direct eye contact. I was just following protocol, Captain. Blankets are limited, and I had to prioritize. Prioritize who? The captain interrupted, his voice icy. Specifically, who were you prioritizing? I need to understand the process you claim to be following. The flight attendant stammered, his mouth opening and closing without forming coherent words. Camille stepped in, her tone firm and cutting. I witnessed other passengers in the same cabin being served without any difficulty, so why was my daughter not given the same treatment? The lead attendant, standing nearby, attempted to interject. Captain, I believe this may have been a misunderstanding. Perhaps our staff didn't handle the situation smoothly. The captain turned toward her, his gaze silencing her mid-sentence. A misunderstanding? Can you guarantee this is the first time such an incident has occurred? An elderly passenger seated near Camille suddenly stood up. Excuse me, but I think the captain should know that this isn't the first time. I've encountered this staff member on a previous flight, and he had the same attitude toward another family. Another passenger chimed in. That's right. I witnessed how he treated a group of Latino students on a past flight. His behavior was incredibly hostile, deliberately trying to embarrass them in front of others. The murmurs in the cabin grew louder as more passengers began nodding in agreement, their shared experiences bringing the issue to light. Camille remained composed but resolute, knowing this moment was no longer just about her and Lena. It was about exposing a pattern of injustice and holding those responsible accountable. The male flight attendant was now beyond denial. His head hung low, his hands tightly gripping the hem of his uniform. The captain frowned and turned to the lead attendant. Were you aware of these incidents? The lead attendant remained silent, then shook her head slightly, her eyes betraying a hint of confusion. I wasn't informed about any previous incidents. So this isn't just about one individual, it's a systemic issue, the captain concluded, his voice steady and firm like steel. But I assure you, this will not happen again. Turning back to Camille and Lena, the captain said, once again, I deeply apologize to you and your daughter for what has occurred. I will ensure this crew member is held accountable for his behavior. Additionally, the airline will send an official apology to both of you. Camille responded, her tone less sharp but still resolute. Captain, an apology is a good start, but I need to know what changes will be made. I don't want any passenger, especially children like my daughter, to ever experience this again. The captain nodded, his eyes reflecting determination. You're absolutely right. I will escalate this matter directly to the airline's leadership. I will personally request a review of staff training protocols, and I promise that behavior like this will be dealt with thoroughly. He turned to the male flight attendant. You are suspended from duty effective immediately. We do not tolerate discrimination in any form. The flight attendant paled, opening his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Avoiding everyone's gaze, he quickly retreated to the back of the cabin under the furious stares of passengers. As the situation settled, Camille returned to her seat. Lena looked up at her mother, her eyes shimmering but no longer filled with fear. Mom, weren't you scared? Camille smiled gently, brushing her daughter's hair. I wasn't scared because I knew I was doing the right thing. Lena, you must remember sometimes standing up for what's right isn't easy. But if you don't do it, no one else will. Lena nodded, her eyes glowing with newfound strength. I understand now, Mom. I'll never stay silent if I see something wrong. Camille squeezed her daughter's hand tightly. She felt relieved knowing that Lena had absorbed an invaluable lesson, a lesson no book could ever teach. The hum of the airplane engines filled the cabin, lulling everyone into a state of peace. Camille looked at her daughter, pride swelling in her chest, not just because she had done the right thing, but because her daughter was growing into someone who believed in her own worth. Yet, Camille knew this was only the beginning. When the plane landed, this incident would not be forgotten. It would grow into a much larger conversation, a wake-up call, not just for the airline but for society as a whole. The plane finally touched down, bringing a sense of relief to both Camille and Lena. As they stepped off the aircraft, Camille took a deep breath, as if shedding the stress of the flight. Lena held her mother's hand tightly, flashing a small smile. Mom, we're really going to the beach now. They quickly caught a taxi to their resort. The road to the resort stretched along the shoreline, with cool ocean breezes blowing through Lena's hair. She pressed her face against the window, her eyes lighting up with excitement as she watched the blue waves lap against the golden sands. Camille and Lena spent the entire afternoon enjoying themselves. Lena ran along the beach, a small bucket in hand, collecting seashells and building sandcastles. Camille reclined on a lounge chair under a sunshade, letting her mind relax and absorbing the serenity of the ocean. The rhythmic sound of the waves was like a melody, soothing the tension of the day. Mom, I finished my castle. Come look, Lena called out excitedly. Camille walked over and sat down beside her daughter. It's beautiful, Lena. Just like you, this castle is resilient against the waves. Lena beamed, her eyes sparkling under the sunlight. I'll always remember what you taught me to be strong and proud of myself. Camille smiled, her heart full of pride. You've already made me proud, my love. While Camille and Lena reveled in their peaceful retreat, the atmosphere at the airline's headquarters was anything but tranquil. An emergency meeting had been called, with the executive board and the male flight attendant from the recent flight incident in attendance. The flight attendant, Lucas, entered the conference room with an air of confidence. He knew he had a powerful ally, Mr. James, the head of human resources, who was a close family friend. Lucas relied on this connection to feel assured he could weather the storm. The CEO began the meeting, his tone cold and authoritative. We've received multiple complaints about your behavior during the recent flight. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Lucas maintained his calm demeanor and replied in a steady voice. Sir, I was simply performing my duties. Those passengers were uncooperative, and I had to ensure the safety of everyone on board. One of the board members raised an eyebrow. Are you saying you refused to serve them due to safety concerns? Lucas nodded, trying to maintain a serious expression. Yes, I observed that they were disrespectful and created tension in the cabin. As a flight attendant, it's my duty to prioritize the safety and stability of the flight. Mr. James, Lucas's acquaintance, interjected. I believe Lucas acted within the boundaries of his job. There may have been a misunderstanding on the passenger's part. The justification left other board members visibly dissatisfied, but without concrete evidence, they held back their objections. The tension in the room felt like it was about to snap. Suddenly, a communications staff member entered the room, clutching a tablet and looking pale. Apologies for the interruption, but this is going viral on social media. I think the leadership needs to see this immediately. She placed the tablet on the table, where a video was playing. The footage, clearly recorded by a passenger on the flight, captured the entire interaction between Lucas and Camille, from Lucas's cold refusal to his dismissive tone, and finally, the sharp comment as he turned away, "We only serve those who know how to behave." The video had gone viral, amassing hundreds of thousands of views in just a few hours. The comment section was ablaze with outrage. This behavior is unacceptable. How can someone like this be allowed to serve customers? This airline owes us all an explanation. After watching the video, the CEO turned to Lucas, his eyes burning with fury. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Lucas was speechless, his face pale as he realized there was no escape. Following the video's release, Lucas was immediately suspended pending further investigation. The meeting ended in tense silence. Everyone in the room knew the airline was now facing an intense wave of public backlash that would not be easily resolved. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, Camille received a message from a friend online, including a link to the viral video. A soft smile crossed her face, her eyes glimmering with satisfaction. This time, justice wasn't confined to a meeting room, it was spreading across society. On the beach, Lena held her mother's hand and whispered, "Mom, I think everything's going to be okay now." Camille looked at her daughter and nodded. "That's right, my love. And we made it happen. Change had begun." The airline's decision to terminate Lucas marked a significant step, but public pressure ensured the journey wasn't over. Camille's actions and those who stood with her not only brought justice but laid the foundation for meaningful reform. Would these changes be enough to ensure no one else suffers from such injustice? And how would Camille and Lena embrace the joy of this victory in the days ahead? Stay tuned as the light of hope continues to shine. Share your thoughts with us and keep following this inspiring journey. The morning on the beach was serene as Camille woke to the warm sunlight streaming through the window of the resort. Lena was still fast asleep, her soft breaths rising and falling steadily. Camille stepped out onto the balcony, her eyes fixed on the gentle waves lapping at the shore. The fresh sea breeze seemed to wash away the lingering tension from their challenging flight. Her phone buzzed suddenly, displaying an unfamiliar number. Camille answered, her voice calm as always. "Good morning, Mrs. Camille. This is Andrew Carter, Director of Customer Relations for the airline. First, I want to extend our sincerest apologies to you and your daughter for what occurred during your recent flight." Camille remained silent for a moment, listening to the sincerity in his tone. Andrew continued, his voice clear and resolute. "We have reviewed the incident thoroughly and concluded that the flight attendant's behavior was entirely unacceptable. To address this, the company has decided to terminate his contract effective immediately." Camille exhaled deeply, relief flooding her chest. Still, she maintained her composed tone. "Thank you for taking this matter seriously. However, the apology needs to be made publicly, not just to me and my daughter, but also to all the passengers who witnessed the incident. Andrew responded immediately, his tone filled with responsibility. You're absolutely right, ma'am. We have scheduled a press conference to issue a formal apology and to outline our commitment to improving our service processes. Additionally, as a personal apology, we would like to offer you and your daughter 2 complimentary tickets to any destination of your choice. Camille was momentarily surprised by the gesture. I appreciate your offer. However, more than the free tickets, I hope this incident becomes a significant lesson for the airline. Andrew paused, his voice thoughtful. We are committed to ensuring that this becomes a turning point. Once again, on behalf of the entire airline, I apologize and hope that you and your daughter can regain your trust in us. Camille smiled softly, her gaze drifting back to the ocean. I accept your apology, and I trust you'll keep your promises. At the same time, the viral video from the flight continued to dominate media platforms, sparking widespread discussion. Criticism of the airline flooded forums and social media, with countless users demanding accountability and clear actions from the company. Camille knew the fight for justice was bearing fruit, not just for her and Lena, but as a wake-up call for an industry and society at large. At the press conference, Andrew Carter, the airline's representative, stood before dozens of reporters. Camera flashes flickered incessantly as he stepped up to the podium. His expression was grave but sincere. Ladies and gentlemen of the press and our valued customers, we are here today not to make excuses but to take full responsibility. The incident on the recent flight was unacceptable and entirely against the values our airline stands for. Andrew took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the room. We have taken decisive action by terminating the employee involved. Furthermore, we are committed to retraining our entire staff to ensure that all customers, regardless of race, nationality, or religion, receive the respect and service they deserve. A journalist raised their hand and asked, "Do you believe this action will be enough to regain customers' trust?" Andrew responded without hesitation, "No, I don't believe one action is enough. We understand that rebuilding trust requires more than words, it demands long-term actions. We are ready to be judged and monitored by our customers as we implement these changes." Finally, he bowed deeply to the room full of reporters. "We offer our heartfelt apologies and hope this will mark a new beginning for better service." After the press conference, Camille received a message from a friend on social media. They've issued a public apology and pledged to make changes. I think this is a huge result thanks to your courage. Camille read the article detailing the press conference, and a sense of satisfaction welled up inside her. Sitting beside her, Lena looked up curiously and asked, "Mom, what did they say?" "They apologized and promised to make changes," Camille said, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "And I believe we did the right thing." Lena smiled, her eyes gleaming with pride. "Mom, I want us to use those 2 tickets to go somewhere new. Next time we'll go and let nothing spoil our happiness, right, Mom?" Camille nodded, pulling her daughter into a warm embrace. "That's right, my love. Next time we'll enjoy every moment fully. And I believe that the changes happening today will help others experience the same." Camille and Lena returned to the beach, where the sunlight danced on the waves. They soaked in the peaceful moments, knowing that their actions had not only brought justice for themselves, but it also sparked a small yet meaningful shift in society. Elsewhere, the viral video and the airline's public apology continued to circulate, serving as a powerful reminder that the voices of the brave can drive significant change. As time passed, the echoes of the incident on the flight continued to resonate. Following the press conference and the overwhelming public criticism, the airline had no choice but to honor its commitments to change. A new training program was immediately implemented, aiming not just to improve service skills but also to shift the attitudes and awareness of the cabin crew. Flight attendants were required to participate in sessions on cultural diversity, equality, and customer respect. These were not just theoretical lectures but included realistic scenarios, forcing participants to confront and resolve situations they might encounter. Each attendant also had to sign a clear agreement any discriminatory behavior would result in severe consequences, with no exceptions. The airline also hosted public meetings with customers to gather feedback, ensuring every passenger felt respected and treated fairly. Gradually, the airline's image in the eyes of the public began to recover. One sunny day, Camille received an email from the airline. The message detailed the changes they had implemented and included an invitation for her and Lena to experience a free flight to any destination of their choice. Camille read the email and smiled softly. She knew this was more than just a gift, it was a reaffirmation that her and Lena's dignity had been restored. Mom, where are we going this time? Lena asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Camille thought for a moment before replying. I think this time we'll go to Paris. The city of light, where you can see the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and so many other amazing things. Lena leaped with joy. Really, Mom? I've always wanted to go to Paris. This time I won't be scared of anything. Camille nodded, her gaze tender. That's right, my love. We're going to enjoy this trip to the fullest. On the day of their departure to Paris, Camille and Lena boarded the plane with a sense of ease. From the moment they checked in, every staff member greeted them with professionalism and warmth. Once on board, Lena curiously looked around, her eyes free of the anxiety she had felt before. A young flight attendant with a friendly smile approached them. Welcome aboard. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to call me. We're honored to have you with us. Lena glanced at her mother and whispered, Mom, this feels so different. Everyone is so nice to us. Camille smiled and replied, That's the result of change, Lena. And we played a small part in making it happen. Not only Camille and Lena, but other passengers who had previously faced injustice also received special attention from the airline. They were not only issued personal apologies, but were also invited to participate in programs aimed at enhancing customer experiences. An Asian American woman, who had been disrespected on a different flight, shared her thoughts. I used to think that small voices like ours would never make a difference. But Camille and Lena's story has shown me that justice is real. Another African American family commented, We didn't expect monumental change, but these small actions prove that society can move forward if we're brave enough to speak up. The flight to Paris went smoothly. Camille and Lena cherished every moment, from the delicious in-flight meals to the breathtaking views as the plane landed. Stepping out of Charles de Gaulle Airport, Lena looked at her mother and held her hand tightly. Mom, I'm proud of you. I think we didn't just change that one flight, we changed how they treat people like us, Lena said. Camille smiled, her eyes full of love. You're absolutely right, Lena. But more importantly, I'm proud of you for learning to stand up for yourself. And that, my dear, is a lesson that will stay with you for life. Camille and Lena's story was not just a personal journey, but a symbol of resilience and the ability to turn painful experiences into motivation for societal change. They reclaimed their dignity and paved a new path for those who had been overlooked or treated unfairly. The story closes in the radiant sunshine of Paris, with mother and daughter walking hand in hand on a street filled with hope. From that moment on, they carried with them a vital lesson: every significant change starts with small voices, as long as we dare to speak up. The journey of Camille and Lena ends with a new chapter in their lives, where justice was served and dignity restored. The ripple effects of their story created a fairer and more respectful environment. This isn't just Camille and Lena's story, it's a lesson for all of us that resilience in the voice of even one person can make a difference. If this story inspired you, remember to follow our channel and support us so we can bring you more meaningful stories. Your support is the motivation for us to continue sharing profound lessons and human values. What do you think of Camille and Lena's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, change always begins with small actions but carries the power to create widespread impact. Thank you for following this story.